So what would be the agenda? It is about clean code. What is that? I will be next sharing low hanging fruits. Then we will get into deep dive and what's next. So what is clean code? So every wrong, whatever you are writing right now would be, can function and produce the desired output. So it could be a wrong code, it could be a bad, messy code. But what happens is that we developers need to identify that what is wrong, what is bad, or what is messy. And that is actually basically known as the clean code, that you look at the code and you try to understand that what you can improve in this. And this is actually very hard to do it for few folks. But having said that, when you are talking about the clean code, you need to understand that even if your code is not clean, it will still function, it could still function, and it could produce the desired output. And you cannot say that because this code is running, this is a clean code. No. So you have to sit back and you have to look at your code and try to understand that, can I improve something there? And the first line should come is that, is your code is hard to understand? Is it too complex? Is it hard to read? These are the few basic starting point, I would say, that you can start with. Now, why it is important? When we are writing code, I'm not saying clean or bad or something. When we are writing the code, the moment we start spending time with it, if your code is not clean, you will see that the developer productivity is going low. Reason? Because obviously the code is not clean, the code is not scalable. The developer would be spending a lot of time in improving that code or writing new functionality. So productivity is going low, maintenance issues are coming. That's why we developer keep sharing about our pain about legacy code, that it's a legacy code, we are not able to maintain it, we have to write a lot of patchy code, lot of hacks we have to put. Reusability goes very low because it's not a clean code. What is happening is you are repeating same thing again and again, and scalability is out of the window. You cannot scale, and definitely your performance of the application will go down. Now if you will see all these 5 points, you will see that there is a developer pain as well as there is application pain. In combination, the company loss is going on. As a developer, you where you were supposed to spend 8 hours on a story, you might be spending 16 hours, but at the end the result which is coming is not great. As well as the application performance is also going down. As a result, if you're working on a product based company, the product itself is becoming downgraded. So that's why it's very important to write a good code and clean code, so that not just you but your future colleagues will be thankful to you that what the job you have done is good. Now, question for you, I would say later on, think about it. Is clean code equals to good performance? Is clean code equals to scalability? Is clean code is equal to maintainability? Just think about these questions once you are done with this presentation, and you will get the answer for yourself. So, clean code is not one-time job. If you are thinking today after this presentation, tomorrow is Monday, you will go open your project code and you will start cleaning and you are done for it. No, it's not like this. Cleaning code is a ongoing job. So after every few weeks or might be months, you will see that you can see an opportunity to make it more cleaner, make it more maintainable, and can introduce new optimization in your code. So never ever think that I am done. Always think that cleaning your existing code is an ongoing job. Second thing is, whenever you are getting a code of any of your like previous project or some from your colleague or in your organization, try to first go through the code base, try to identify what are the opportunities to clean or improve, and try to, instead of jumping on that, try to create the stories. Basically, try to give the visibility to your leads, your managers, that the code which you have given me on above which I have to write the code, it requires extra time and effort because there are opportunities to make the code better, so that you are not stuck and you are not spending time, and as well as you are getting a visibility also in your seniors, that obviously you are doing your story as well as you are spending time on cleaning the code. This is the reason I'm highlighting this, because this is the one of the most asked question, that my leads or my manager or my leadership or blah blah blah, they doesn't invest time on doing code cleaning, then how I should go ahead with this? So the simple thing is, highlight, make a ticket, put it in the Jira or wherever you are tracking. Tell your lead manager, whosoever, that this is the opportunities I have to clean, I have to work on, and I already estimated it so that you can get the visibility. Okay, so we will start with low hanging fruits, which is very simple, yet people forget it. As well as these are not just related to React.js. So anyone who in future decided to move from React.js to any other technology, these things are still gonna valid. So the first thing is naming convention. I know you must have heard a lot. Have proper name of your variables, functions, file names. But trust me, throughout my career, I have seen so many people, even the senior folks are doing so basic mistake. Naming is, yes, naming is one of the hardest tasks in the programming world. But trust me, this is the most basic and most important work you can do. And looking at your naming convention of your variables, function, file names, any developer, any senior person can easily differentiate between a junior developer, senior developer, or the architect level of developer. Trust me, this is the most. So when I take interviews and I give the application to be, when I give them the machine test, the first thing I also notice is how good they are in doing the variables name or function name or file names. So spend some good time on your naming convention. Now, giving you an example, if you will see on line number 3, I have highlighted with red square sort cursor. So the name says sort cursor, but what is sort cursor? I am not able to see. I don't understand by this. Then on line number 7, the second bottom red square rectangle, sorry, on click up arrow. Again, not clear that what is happening. So whenever you are making the variable's name, either of a variable or a method, the name should be very, very clear so that by reading the name, your reviewer can understand that what exactly is happening. Like on line number 3, sort cursor. So my question is certain cursor is getting sort or what is happening? On click up arrow, what is on click up arrow? So these are not clear at all. So when, even if you are doing the code review, spend some time on this, that when you are reading the variable's name, when you are reading the function's name, are they clear or not to you? And if not, then highlight that. So the good practice is, should be self-explanatory, definitely, camel case or any specific pattern. So if you will go back here, you will see on line number 3, sort cursor is your camel case. And on line number 7, you can see it's not following that. Basically, your O is not uppercase, whereas in sort cursor, the S is. So this is the consistency, which is also very important. Now, a trick to remember, whenever you are naming your function or method, it should be verb. Basically, it's an action. Every function is doing some action. So always think in verb. So on handler, on change like this, very, or get something like this. So basically, it should be a verb, starting with verb. Variable should be a noun. So these two things will help you a lot to give your variables or your names of variables function better. And do not write names like QUI. So I have seen, like, when I also used to do like quick POC or something, I used to keep short names. And whenever I used to pass that POC to someone, the first review I used to get that what this variable is doing, what this function is doing. Sometimes I have seen the people just keep one alphabet name, and you get crazy that what this alphabet, what this variable is doing. So have proper name. So if you will ask me, if when I see QUE, I always ask, this is Q or query? And then I have to read a lot the lines to understand that what is happening. So never make your names shorter just for sake of saving some time. Spend time on your naming convention. And when we talk about the React specific, your component's name should be very clear that what they are doing. So if it's a header component, it should say header. If it's a footer component, it should say footer. If it is an accordion, it should say accordion. If they are the sub components, it should talk about that. So naming is very, very important. And giveaway here is, even when you go back after this talk, open your code and just start going through that and see that are your variables names, your method name, your components name are clear or not? Even your file names also. So all these things still valid on your variables, sorry, file name also. The next thing is consistency. Another very simple thing, yet I have seen a lot of people do a lot of mistakes here. And again, when you are sitting in the interview or when you are doing the production level code, when the consistency is not there, definitely it's a turn down. And my mantra is, when you are working in a team like 6 developers, 3 developers, 4 developers, at the end the code should look like that it is written by one person. It should not be like that you can identify, oh, this is done by Neha, or this is done by Shreya, or this is done by Lakhan. It should not be like this. At the end your code should look like that it is written by one person. And how that could be how that can be achieved? By having the consistency. And consistency go in a lot of ways, like your naming convention. So if you will go back to the point one of variables name, the naming convention pattern what you will be using, that should be used throughout your project. The components name pattern should be used throughout your project. The syntax you are using, the logics you are using, the data flow and the handling you are doing, how the data is getting handled, it should be consistent. Example, in React world, if you are using context API, then all the components should be using context API, rather than one is using context API, the other is using Redux or any other state management library, unless and until you have a very good reason of using Redux in a particular situation. But I have seen projects where one developer has used context API, the other is using Redux, and they are not talking to each other. I don't know why. So this consistency is very, very important. So again, go back and check wherever you see the consistency is missing. Either it's a naming convention, syntax, logic. Now, talking about the syntax, basically, if you have if else and you have written if else with the brackets, and somewhere else someone has removed those curly brackets, so that's not the consistency you are maintaining. So you have to identify those things. So just go back and check that. Now here, one of the example. So the top one, if you will see, it's the component name is, the function name is footer, starting with uppercase. Now at the bottom, function header, the header is all uppercase. So again, the consistency is missing. And as if I am the lead, I can see that who has what habit of writing the name like footer starting with uppercase, and who has the habit of writing with the all capital. And when this kind of code go and merge in your production level code, it's very bad. It's literally very bad. The second example is in on the top, the second red column where you see my class name is my hyphen 8. Now at the bottom in the header, you will see that hyphen my 8 is there, but that hyphen W screen, that is missing from W screen. But on the top, you have W hyphen screen. So these are the inconsistency you can easily identify. The third one is regarding your the text which is coming, footer.copyright. On the top, the copyright is in single shot, but at the bottom in the footer, we have again hyphen in between. Now, the the cost of this is definitely the consistency is not there, but the other cost is the copyright and the copyright at the bottom. They are now becoming two variables in your locale. At the end, they are holding the same content. If some change will come in the copyright and a third developer will come, what that developer will assume, that developer will just search copyright, and the first one which will match, that person will do the changes there, and that's it. But he or she doesn't know that there's another copyright, copy hyphen right. So you can see that unintentionally you are also introducing the bugs in your code because you are missing the consistency. So again, go back, check wherever you see the inconsistency is there, improve that, fix that. Again, at the end, your mantra should be that your code at the end should look like that it is written by only one person, though in the behind the scenes there are 6 or 7 or 10 people are working. It doesn't matter. Okay. The third thing is architecture. I will talk about in terms of React.js, but again, these things valid to everything. Whenever you are picking a new project, instead of directly jumping into writing the code, spend some good time. I always say zero sprint in thinking about architecture, that how the architecture of your project would be, how the folder structure would be, what are the file extension, what are the tooling system you are going to use, what are the linters, formatters you are going to use, how the flow would be there. So these are the things which every developer should think. If you think I'm a junior developer, I'm just starting, it's fine, but still have your own opinions, have your own views, that if you have to start this project, how you would be defining the architecture. Do your own research, go and check the big projects how they are doing, and get the inspiration from there. Now in React.js world, the problem is that there is no specific pattern to follow, but the good thing is that you have an opportunity to improve and bring your own good patterns there. But the funda should be that should be easy to understand, easier to find the files, and should be scalable. So the way I work with architecture is, I always think, if in future a defect would come, how many files a developer has to go through to fix that particular issue. For example, if there is a CSS bug came, or if there is a content change came, how many files that person has to go and touch. And according to that, I try to keep it minimum, so that it's easier to find the files, easy to understand for a new person to come and check that. In React.js world, the most common mistake I have seen is the people who are submitting their interview assignment, or doing their production level code is, they do create React app and they never bother to clean it. They never bother to clean it. Though VS Code always highlight the files which are not in use, still they ignore it. So that's why I always suggest, spend some time. The moment you have done the create React app, clean your folder, delete all the files you don't require, reorganize your architecture. So the one which I am very big fan of, to break my components, constant, context, mock, test, utils, everything in folder. So basically folder specific architecture I follow in my React.js project. You might be having something else. You might be using monorep or something. But the point, bottom line here is, if you don't have an architecture which is easy to understand, where you can easily find files and easily scale, then my friend, you are doing a big mistake. If you have files and folders which are not getting used, still you have there, again the big mistake. So spend some time, go back, identify, reorganize. If your project architecture is not understandable, like the screenshot which I'm showing you right now, if someone will say go to the accordion components, they know that they have to go to the components folder and pick the content from there and fix it. Okay, so this is what we have to do. The next is no hard coding. Another very simple thing, yet people forget about it, that your code should not have any hard coded data. So what you have to do is, you have to move all the hard coded content out of your components code and put it in your locale. If you are not doing React.js, still you can have that your locale file or JSON file where you will put all the content there. Now, why it is important? The importance of this is scaling. Today you have only requirement of creating it in English. But what if tomorrow you have to create it in Japanese, or you have to make it French? In that case, keeping your content in a separate file will help you to do these kind of requirements handling very easy. Second thing is, if there is any typo coming or any content change is coming, instead of your developer going in the component file and touching it, what that developer has to do is just touch the locale file. So you are again making sure that minimum files are getting touched. So minimum scope of bug is coming. And it would be very easy for review too, that you have to just look at the locale. You don't need to worry about that the component file has been touched. Trust me, this is a very simple thing, yet I have seen a lot of people just miss it out. So for example, I have given the example here. They have ascending, up, descending, down. All these are the, put it in the component code. These can be easily moved out from the component and move it somewhere else. So that tomorrow, if any requirement is getting changed from descending to something else, all you have to do is just go in locale and change it. So again, simple, but very powerful. This is the example that is how you should be doing, like footer.copyright, footer.discord server. Tomorrow, if your Discord server link got changed, you don't need to worry about coming to the component. All you need to do is go back to your locale and just update there. That's it. Okay. The last, I'm not sure if this is the last, but the fifth one is comments. Again, simple, yet people don't take it seriously. First of all, if you are explaining how your code is working in comments, then you are doing absolutely wrong. You should not be putting your behavioral in comments at all. Comments should be very minimum, yet give the information required. So it should focus that what is happening. So example is, if you will look at the bottom one, it is just giving the information that what kind of parameters it is expecting. String type should be string, message should be string. These kind of information is required definitely. But if you are going to put all your functionality in the comment, that is gonna not gonna work. On the top one, what the developer has tried to do is that we are trying to explain that this particular query, regex is trying to make the first character uppercase or insert a space before all caps, so that it's easy to understand for the developers who doesn't understand regular expression, that what is happening here. So try to have comments, but the comments should not be talking about how what is your approach and all, but the important one. But definitely you should have comments. And linting and formatting, again, very simple, like literally very simple, yet people forget about it. A lot of developers I have worked with, interview, I have seen that they never bother about formatting or linting. And then I met developers who are very serious about it. And trust me, it is very important to have ESLint setup or prettier setup, and your code is always formatted. It makes your life easy, it makes other life easy. It's a very simple thing, yet very powerful for the clean coding. So always have this, as well as if you're working in a project, you can have your own reusable configs, which you can reuse in every project for your workspace or code, which you should be sharing with your colleagues. And definitely make these integrated with your CI/CD, so that whenever your code is running, if there are ESLint errors, your build should fail. So these are very important. ESLint will help you and force you to write the good code and avoid the bugs. And when we are talking about the clean code, definitely we want that the bugs should be minimum. The moment we have pushed our code in production, the last thing we want is the bug which is coming and making our night hell. So that's why it's very important. Configs. Another thing, simple one, just like our hard coding, our locale JSON, if you have variables in your application like that, database details, APIs, URLs, endpoint URLs, all these should not be tightly coupled within your code. You should be making a different file, either config file, environment file, and move them there. Do not hard code those. The reason is same like our content. In future, if any API endpoint gets changed, you will not be touching your component code. You will be just touching your environment variables file, and that's it. Config file. For the environment variables, definitely for the security purpose, it's very important to have that. The last thing you want is you are pushing your database password or any password related, which is very confidential, to your GitHub and making it public for everyone. So make sure that whenever you are getting these kind of requirement, you have your different separate file. The one of the funda of clean code is making the separation of different responsibility. So every file should be doing the particular task they are assignable for, so that it is very easy to plug out things. Tomorrow, if you don't need this database password, username, collection name in your code, all you need to do is just remove your environment variable file and just pick those variables out of your code. If you will be doing the tight coupling within your component code, you will be sitting and doing all the refactoring. So that's why it's very, very important. And definitely ease of deployment on different environments. The moment you have these files available with you, you can very easily deploy them into different environments, dev, QA, or pre-prod or prod. Okay, so the summary of low-hanging fruits where we have reached is naming convention, comments, consistency, formatting, linting, architecture, hard coding, environment variables, and configs. Folks, just give me a minute, please.
All right. Until Neha comes. Okay, Neha is back now.
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry. Yeah, you want to say something?
No. I thought you would need like some time. That's it. No problem.
Okay. Cool. So moving ahead. So now the next, which is I mark deep dive, but I would say must to have for developers. This is we are going into that. So the first thing is destructuring the props. React.js cannot work without props at all. Components do communicate with each other by using props, and it is very important to understand props. And when you are working on a large project, irrespective of large project, I would say, and I would like to say that stop thinking that if it's a large project or it's a prod level code, or then only you have to take care of this. Whatever I'm telling you, from today onwards, even if in your side project, in your practice code, wherever whatever you are doing, start incorporating these. The reason is the moment you will start working on these kind of habits, automatically you will start embarrassing these. So talking about props, on the top, what we see is the common way of doing the props thing, that we just put the props in our component. When we go inside our return or render, we do props dot, and we try to get the whatever the props we required. But the best practice is destruct your props on the in the definition of your component. Now why it is important? The important is because when you are working, now looking at the order history, I will speak from a reviewer point of view. If I am on the top component, I will be reviewing, so I will be checking order history and then props. I don't know what props are coming, so I have to go inside and check what all props are required. But in at the bottom one, the what is happening is, on the first line, I'm able to understand username, session ID, order details. These are the three props is required in this component. And I can see that session ID and order details are not used, yet they have been called. So I can give my review that remove this. And first thing is, by just looking at the definition, I can see that three props are required. If I'm doing type checking or if I have prop types, they will also help me in doing the quick review. So in the first go, I'm able to get the summary of my component. So by this, what is happening is you are making it very easy to understandable and read for the fellow developers and the reviewers, rather than the developer is spending time in going through line of codes. Having said that, please remember, just for the sake of the example, I have made these 3 lines code. If you have worked with React projects, you know the components code can become more than 20, 30, 40 lines. It could be a longer code component. So just don't think, oh, it's just a 3 lines of code. It's very easy to understand. Think like when you are working with the component which is very huge, in that it is going to be very hard. So that's why it's important to destructure props on the top. Single responsibility model, this is very very important. Again, this is a very, I have seen very repetitive mistake every developer does, not just in React.js world, but every programmer, I would say most of the program, I'm sorry. What happens is when we are working on a requirement or a component or a feature, we try to put all the code in that particular one component. But the way we should be doing is that one file or one method should be doing only one particular task. So it's a single responsibility model. So always break your components, methods, and functions into multiple. The reason is, otherwise what will happen is you are introducing complexity, hard to understand, and you are tightly coupling everything. Again, the same thing. If I have to remove anything from my big component, what I have to do as a developer, I have to spend a lot of time in that for refactoring. So that's why it's very important to follow single responsibility model. Simple funda, one component should be doing one thing, one function should be doing one thing. So every should be doing only single task. Now looking at the example, if you will see, this is a component which is a header. Now what is happening here is we are displaying our image, profile image. We are having a button also, and we are having a list also at the bottom. Instead of putting everything there, we should be breaking this into multiple components. So I would be having one component for image, so that that image component would be responsible only for the profile image. The button component would be the separate component. So that button component is responsible for handling the button events and everything. And the list would be coming from a separate component. Now, the advantage of this is when you will look back at the header after the refactoring, what will happen? It would be very easy to understand. You have image, you have button, you have list, and you have a heading. If you want to remove the image, all you need to do is just remove the image component. Very easy to review. very easy to maintain, very easy to scale. Tomorrow, if you have to make your list to be a sub list, or you have to introduce the listing to have more structure in that, all you need to do is just go in your list component and do the changes rather than doing everything in header. So always follow single responsibility model. I would say it's pretty easy. Again, go back, check your code. Wherever you see the opportunity of creating the multiple components files, do that. Okay. The next one is type checking. Now in JavaScript world and in React.js world, we don't have any type check. So there is no built-in type check. And unfortunately, that actually open a lot of opportunities for error. If you are someone who is very new for type checking, you might not be able to understand, because we developer, I will blame myself also, that I used to say, oh, I'm writing the code, I know the requirement, so there won't be any issue. So why we need type checking? But trust me, type checking is very, very important. So because most of the time we would be dealing with the data which is API, which is third party or coming from somewhere else, we won't be having the control over that. And as a developer, we always assume happy scenarios. So it's very, very important to have the type check, that what kind of types you are expecting your prop should be having, your component should be having what kind of uh, data, uh, the what are required variables, what are not the required variables or props. If there is a default value you have to give, then what is that? These are the small things for, but they are very, very important and crucial. Once you get into the habit of implementing this, you yourself will see the benefit out of this. So if you are someone who is very new, I would say first start with prop types, at least introduce that, and slowly start moving toward TypeScript. It's very important and very good to have. Okay. So this is just a small example I have given of prop types. If you will go to the React.js documentation, their official website, they have one page dedicated only to prop types. Very straightforward to use, but start using it. It will make a lot of difference in your code. Reusability. The next thing is, whenever you see anything which is getting used more than twice in your project, make that a reusable function, method, utils, or introduce hooks. You have hooks in your React.js now, so start identifying where you can introduce your own custom hooks. Now why we are doing it? So in React, I will start with the basic one like components. So if I will go here, this particular example, I told you that we can have multiple components here for image, for button, for nav. Now, when you will introduce the component of button, you are actually introducing reusability also. The reason is, if now I will come on your project, if I also have to use button, I don't need to write the code, because you have already created a component. I can just start using that. So you are introducing reusability. So always think about reusability in components as well as function. So wherever you see in your code a function is getting used more than twice, move that into a util or helper. So I do have an example of that. Yeah, this is the one. So if you will see what is happening at the bottom, we have created a function which is doing camel case to normal. So the function is doing this, util is just doing that. But I know that this particular functionality will can be used multiple time in my project. So what I have done is, I have made this as a separate function, so that any other developer who wants to convert camel case content to normal, they can just go ahead and use it. Now the benefit is, obviously we are saving the time. We are definitely saving the bugs also, because I have already written this, I have already tested it, so it is working perfectly. So minimum bugs are coming and easy to maintain, because now it's not like that the way I have written, the other developer is writing in a separate way. So obviously we are also introducing consistency. And again, for your future projects, when you move to a new project, you have to use the same functionality. All you need to do is just come back and get this method and put it there. So reusability. And reusability is very, very, very important. So either React or non-React, identify where you can do it and where you can introduce reusability and do it. Now, this is the example of CSS. So this screenshot is actually cut from the top, but what was happening here is there were two classes. Both classes were having the same style, only one property was changed. But what the developer has done is the developer has introduced two different classes. This could be easily made in one classes. Sorry, in two classes. You can have two classes. I'm sorry, let me rephrase. How this can be optimized: you can have one class which will be sharing all the same property, and then only one separate class which will be having that different style. Now what is happening in this is, first we are optimizing the number of lines we have written, and the shared properties, shared styling properties are now coming from one place. So whenever you have to do any change in the shared one, you can just easily go and change it at one place. Now what is the advantage? Now suppose we have decided that line number 25, 24, there is border bottom black. But now what we have decided is that it should be different. So what we should be doing? So what developer would be doing is, that developer will be going in multiple places and doing the changes. Instead of that, if you have one common class from where your shared properties are coming, you will just go at one place and do the changes and then can relax. So this reusability thing can be implemented in everywhere. So either it's css, either it's components, either it's your methods, anywhere. You just need to understand that what are the things which are getting repetitive and move them into your helper. Okay, test cases. Test cases are another pain area, I would say most of the developers try to avoid, but this is one of the things which we should be definitely, if you are, if you want to write clean code, it should be there. So when we say TDD, it's test driven development, not Twitter driven development. So think about test driven development always. Now why it is important? So when you do test cases, it helps you to avoid errors and bugs. It helps you to scope the requirement. So whenever a developer who is very new to test cases talk to me or discuss with me that, it's I'm not able to understand test cases, why we should do it and all. So I always try to convince them by saying TDD is going to help you in scoping out your requirements. We always complain that we get vague requirements, but the moment you start writing test cases, the first thing you will be doing is you will be scoping out the requirements, that what your component is gonna do it, or what your application, if you are doing end to end, what the behavior you are expecting. So this will help you to scope out your requirements, and if anything is missing, you can call it out. As well as it helps you in documentation, because you are writing test case of everything. So this becomes your documentation, and whenever a new joiner is joining, they can very easily go through your TDD, your test cases, and understand that what is happening. Also, you get a coverage at the end of the day which can speak about your quality, but yes, that's not the right measurement of code quality, but at least you can put some number metrics out there that we have this percentage of code coverage. And the most important thing is, it definitely helps you in controlling the errors and bugs, which we as a developer, again, because we think about always happy scenarios, we miss out. So always do TDD, very important. Start with the simple one, and which is unit testing, and then you can move to end-to-end testing. But it is very, very important. So the way I do is, the first thing is the screenshot you are looking at the top. A lot of people, not a lot of people, I have seen in few places where they do expect true to be true, which is not the right way, because this will definitely always run. So the way I try to write my TDD or do my TDD is, I always start with it dot to do, that what my test case is gonna do. So by doing to do, I'm actually writing, scoping out my requirements, that these are the things I'm gonna do. And then I start writing the code, which is definitely TDD, and then I start writing the code. Now what happened is, it gives me an idea that how many functionality I have covered and how many are left. And then you can also do skip, if you wanted to skip out any test case. So the one thing which I wanted to highlight here, not one, two things. First, TDD is important, and second, try to scope out your requirements, like by doing it dot to do, that what you are gonna test. Okay, the next one is state. um, State is the way of handling the state management in React.js. uh, I have covered in the starting of low hanging fruits when we were talking about consistency. Here I just wanted to talk about that. In React, when we talk about state, a lot of people just assume Redux. And people who are in React JS from the beginning, they, I don't know how they are doing, but I just wanted to put it out there that always use functional components over class. We have hooks now. So class component should be, take this as an opportunity where you see class components, refactor that. In clean code, it is also very important to keep updating your code base so that you are writing less and your code is very much aligned to the current ecosystem. So when we talk about the state, you can start with the context API. If you don't, if you have a complex project where you are not going with the context API, then use one state management library. Do not go with Redux or Flow or different one. Have consistency there, and use state hook very smartly. So another area when I look at the state management is, so on the top, if you will see, what is happening is whenever this is a login form where we have user email and username, and we have created two state. Instead of that, what we can do is we can just create one state, and with the object in the state we can handle this. And the reason of this is you are able to, because at the end this is a single object, user email username. So this is how you should be using it rather than creating state for everything. So what you need to do is you need to go back to your code, you need to look at your states. If it's a form, why you need to create like 7 or 8 different states for that? You can have one object and you can put everything there. So use state very smartly. It's very, very important. I think this is the last one. If not, then the next one is fragment. Another important thing is JSX is not just equal to HTML. So do not think like that. And I'm very much into accessibility. One of the downside of when I look at the code and when we talk about the clean code is the way we are abusing our HTML, our DOM basically. We React developers are so much into JSX that we forget about that what is getting rendered in the browser. We are just focusing over the HTML. So that's why we end up using a lot of div. And the reason is because what is happening is we might be lack of awareness, but trust me, there are so many tags available in HTML apart from div, like header, footer, p tag, all that. But the few of developers I have seen that they don't use anything else apart from div. And what happened at the end is accessibility get impacted, DOM get polluted, your HTML is getting messy. One of the exercise I generally give to the developers is that I give them one page and I discuss that how you are going to design the whole application in React, plus how you are going to write the HTML or JSX of that, just to see that do they understand that they are writing the wrong HTML or not. So in this case, whenever you see that you don't need div, the first thing is think which particular HTML tag would be the best one. So if you are creating, for example, a section, then it should be a section tag. And if you don't need any div, yet you need a container, then instead of using a div, you can use React fragments, which is very, very useful. So in this example, if you will see, I don't want it to wrap my H1 and profile, but because I didn't knew fragments, I used div. Now what will happen? My DOM is getting extra div render and I don't want that. So what I will do is I will use React fragment, which are Angular brackets. Now what will happen? It is not gonna print any extra div. So yeah. So now wrapping up what we talked about in this section, it's about props, test cases, fragments, single responsibility model, type checking, reusability, and state. These are related to React, yet few of them can be applicable to irrespective of which programming language you are working on. Now, there are more also. As I told you, I will leave it here so you can go back and check that later. I can just let you know documentation is important, CI/CD is important, styling consistency is important. Avoid fancy syntax unless and until they are not adding any value, because for you those are fancy syntax. For example, in JavaScript, if you are removing the curly bracket or flower bracket, I'm not sure how many developers would be able to read that code. So what is easier for you might not be acceptable for the industry specific. So don't do that. Think about third party dependency. Do you need it? And are you reinventing the wheel? So think about that and then implement it.